To you and welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Hot Sit, and I'm your host, Hope Tishala Akauma. Now this morning we are featuring Peer Faction Chairperson for Publicity and Information, Emmanuel Mwamba. So good morning to you all that are joining us this morning. For those that are catching us on our Facebook page, that is the Hot FM Zambia Facebook page, you can also catch us on the audio bouquet that is on DSTV as well. Top of the hour, that is at 10, we will be opening up the phone lines if you have any questions or contributions to make. Good morning. Welcome to the Hot Sit.
Hope, good morning, and good morning to our dear audience.
Right, good to have you here.
Thank you very much. I haven't been here for some time.
How are things with you politically?
The Lord is blessing us. Our challenges remain high, but we are determined that this is a fight for our country. This is a fight for restoration of democracy for our country. This is a fight to ensure that Zambia is back on track. It's off the rails at the moment. In the exercise of their duty, and if they are called upon to implement illegal issues, that they probably must excuse themselves. He even provided that in the event that they are victimized, fired, suspended, or transferred, that when the new government come in 2026, that they will restore the civil servants involved. And then he made, he ended his remarks by stating that for you who are abusing your powers as civil servants, who are implementing illegalities and unlawful things, is that the community knows you, will come after you. And that is what has been taken, that the president threatened civil servants clearly. If you see from the spirit of his discussion, and if you see the video, I think has now been circulated, it's very clear. If I afforded your nephew this company, which doesn't have maybe history of construction, and I give it an award, I award it a tender, I may be investigated, because they will have failed on evaluation, for example, financial and technical evaluation. You have to, when the instructions are not clear. I remember once, to remain professional, even in the face of threats, illegalities.
But was that the best way to give out, this advice?
Rally.
Coming for you, will come to your homes, we will be sorting you out one by one. Was that the best way to advise?
As the communications expert have said, the worst statements always come at a rally, at the airport, at any public place where you ambush the president. It's not the best place to communicate, because there's euphoria, there's unpreparedness, there's something that will just spring up.
So are you saying he was ill-prepared?
I've always stated that, for example, presidents must not issue statements when they are on the tarmac of the road, the engines are running and is about to go, you're asking him very critical questions. Some of the worst statements for presidents, starting from Kaunda, have come from the airport. Some of the worst statements come from the rallies, because there is a temptation to be misunderstood, because you are speaking to a local audience while you are live to the entire country. So for me, President Lungu was...
Mr. Mwamba, that was a careless statement. Are you confirming that was...
No. I didn't say it wasn't a careless statement. I put it very clearly that President Lungu made it very clear that rogue civil servants will not be allowed. No government should allow any rogue civil servants. We have been abducted. We have been tortured. Is that the role of the police? Would you allow such a police officer who has tortured you, who has abducted you, to remain in police service? No, not at all. Would you allow police officers that are abusing the Constitution? Would you allow the conduct, for example, of Grafio Musamba, who regularly ignores the Constitution and takes away freedoms of people? Those people are not supposed to be in civil service or in public service at all. So we must be very clear that rogue civil servants must not be allowed. We should move to a professional service, public service, a service that is professional, that is a service that is respected by our people, a service because it's enshrined in the Constitution. And all constitutional office holders are very, very clear, and their mandates are known.
Yeah, but don't you understand why this statement by the former president seems to anger quite a lot of people?
No, it's based on propaganda.
The intention, we do understand the intention, and in a way we all agree that civil servants should be above board. But it's the delivery of the so-called advice. I mean, he's a seasoned politician.
Can you
so
play?
Are you. You do understand politically when you make such statements just how they play out.
No. The president was very clear. What is at stake is propaganda, where people have misinterpreted what the president says very clearly in the video. If you have the video, you can play it. He says, you civil servants, but civil servants, do your job and do it well. In the event that because you are doing a professional job, you are victimized, you are fired, you are transferred, you are suspended, we reinstate you. And then he warned the rogue civil servants that are implementing illegalities that will root you out of the civil service because they don't belong in the civil service. So whether the delivery, the principle remains the same, that the public service should be a professional service. And there are these people that have invaded the public service that are soiling it. That must never be allowed. The civil service that we should envision is a professional civil service. In fact,
some of the argument is, why didn't he walk the talk the time he was in power? Why didn't we see him delivering such messages?
Hope I'll invite you to invite the former president. Come and ask him. But his record is very clear. He didn't victimize this man, President Hakainde Hichilema, has put aside civil servants. We have put out a figure of 400, over 400 civil servants. At our last count was 407 civil servants have been set away literally on two things: either their ethnic disposition or because they are accused at the Patriotic Front. They've not been fired, they are at Public Service Management Division. I don't know how many permanent secretaries from are still pending at Cabinet Office. I don't know how many officials are still at home but pretending, still on salary, but they've no official positions. In fact, nearly every position in government, starting at director and assistant director, have two positions. They've a new one who they've recruited, and they've another who they've set aside. We requested the public protector, whose ambit the Constitution provides, to ensure that they investigate this matter, that this matter should not just be a mere allegation. There are a lot of civil servants that have been victimized, and without cause and without justification. And they remain at home.
Looking at some of the reactions, Home Affairs Minister also reacted to it and has warned Mr. Lungu to stop making statements that incite violence against civil servants in the country. There was this.
The Home Affairs Minister, I think, has lost both ground and legitimacy in this country. His conduct when JJ was abducted, this is a Petauke member of Parliament, Central Honorable Emmanuel JJ Banda, the conduct of the Minister of Home Affairs was not good in there. It was not impartial, it was not constitutional. He's been issuing threats. Just yesterday was threatening people on social media and how he will implement the Cyber Crimes and Cyber Security and Cyber Crimes Act of 2021 and how citizens will be punished. This is a government that stated that they will repeal this law because it was against rights and freedoms of our people. Now they're even bringing a second layer of amendments to tighten the provisions that everyone condemned were illegal and unconstitutional and took away freedoms of our people. And you saw the threats. And his remarks are delusional because they are based on a falsehood. They are based on an assumption that President Edgar Lungu said that. When you play the entire video, that President Lungu didn't threaten civil servants. President Lungu threatened rogue civil servants that they'll be removed, and professional civil servants that they'll be removed, that civil servants that are perpetrating illegalities that they'll be removed. No civil service, no public service, whether in Europe, whether in UK, in America, should have civil servants that some are behaving like this. I've just cited Honorable Graffel Msamba, the Inspector General of Police. You cannot have a constitutional office holder who abuses the constitution, who takes away rights of citizens. Such a person must not be in that office. We've called for either his resignation or his dismissal, and none of the two have occurred.
So in no way do you feel he was inciting violence?
Not at all. The video is very clear, and I would challenge that we play it if you wish to. You will see President Lungu is commending civil servants to be professional. is insisting civil servants must be professional to the extent that even if they are victimized, they'll be reinstated. That's the core message of President Lungu. So where they've turned the propaganda and believing in their own propaganda, in their own lies, and then building a layers of comments on falsehood, why should we participate in that? The video is very clear. I challenge any citizen to play it. And the citizens will hear what the President Lungu is saying at that Samfia rally. He's begging civil servants to remain professional, not to be cowed by fear, not to be allowed to abuse authority, because that's illegal, not to be abused by politicians that are giving them instructions that are illegal. That's what, and he's saying, even if it will cost you a job, be assured, register it with us, you'll be reinstated. It's not like our colleagues who have put out up to 400 civil servants at Public Service Management Division and at Cabinet Office. And people have been set away, and we are paying double salary to the person they couldn't fire and to the person they've hired. For me, that's what Zambians must worry about. That they have their brothers and sisters from across the country that have been victimized for merely because they worked in the previous government.
I spent a bit of time on former President Edgar Lungu and his return to politics. Well, we do remember, some of the statements he issued concerning his comeback, reasons, advanced, protecting the party, his family as well from prosecution. And for some, the feeling has been, well, he should have just taken the back seat. He should have just sat back and not be as active as he is right now in politics. Your reaction to this?
Well, you should say that to Jacob Zuma, former president of South Africa. You should say that to Ian Khama, former president of Botswana. You should say that to Joseph Kabila. What's causing former presidents to come back to politics? It's very simple. The conduct of the successor, the conduct of the incumbent, where they target the former president and his associates. That's what's causing former president to return to power, where you unfairly victimize them. You make them a target and begin to scandalize them and their families, take away their property that they've earned legitimately, call them thieves. They will come out of their shell as former presidents and begin to defend themselves. For me, I'll ask the incumbents, what is it that you are doing that's making former presidents come out of the shell? Why can't you be like William Ruto, who, first of all, has respected the former president? William Ruto, even when the former president has been extremely provocative, William Ruto of Kenya has insisted on respecting the former president and according him all his benefits and sending him to international trips. When did Edgar Lungu monitor any election in Africa? Edgar Lungu has a stellar record. As an incumbent, he lost power and gave it to the opposition leader. He has such a distinguished record in Africa that he can be an example to democracy in Africa. When did this government ever use him? Every day they scandalize him. I was looking at the story today where they're saying there are goods and property that have been seized for Lungu's associates. How does Lungu come in a matter where a very distinguished businessman who runs a construction company has property and they've been seized? How does Edgar Lungu come in? You mean Zambians will not be successful? And even if I had contracts with the previous government, my property have to be taken away? The construction business is one of the lucrative businesses. People can afford to build flats. They can afford to build even 1,000 flats. How should that be criminal? But you have a state that is determined to destroy the former president. They are abusing the Forfeiture of Proceeds of Crimes Act of 2010, where that law, I personally have stated that it must be challenged in courts of law because it takes away your constitutional right to property, your constitutional right to be deemed innocent. The SEC can just come and look at you, Hope, and says, in my view, you can't afford your small VITs. It's the proceeds of crime, and they can take it away.
So are you saying that's what's happening? Well, it's a country of laws. And so where a law has been broken, we understand most of the cases are under investigation. How do you deal with them then so that it doesn't look like, oh, you are just having a go at them simply because these are proxies to the former president or family to the former president. How then do you handle
in his write-up how Zambia's are acting criminally or are corrupt under you, but you use the law to crush your opponent? This is what is happening. It's called lawfare, where you are using the law. In this case, there is no audit, there is no money that has been established that has been stolen somewhere. Then you just deem all properties belonging to the former president as stolen assets. It's very simple to abuse the law. And, I'll urge people to read the write-up by
the president now. We can look at those as, we can look at that, what you just read out there as, well, it's accusations. How do you substantiate that? And we do have institutions that have been mandated, tasked to fight corruption. You don't feel they work on their own?
Recently,
there was a finger all the time be pointed at the president?
Yeah, recently there was a matter where our brother from the University of Zambia, Dr. O'Brien Kaba, put out a letter, and he said the fight against corruption in Zambia had fallen, had stopped, was actually a scandal in itself, because the looting of the treasury was heightened. And then the participation of state chambers was of very concern. What are state chambers? The office of the attorney. But in our case, you have cases that ended up in a nolle prosequi. A nolle prosequi case can never be a subject matter of awards. But in this government, they are awarding matters that ended up in a nolle prosequi. Let me give you examples. There was 10 million kwacha awarded to UPND cadres for the alleged forced imprisonment and malicious prosecution. This matter ended up in a nolle prosequi, but Michael Tembo, Njao Stali, Mainza Chongo, Mulenga Chileshe, Wanda Nakazuwa, David Samba, Stali Mukuni, Big Mubanga, Jinga Kayata, and James Sambulo were awarded 10 million kwacha. When a matter ends on a nolle, there is a likelihood that the matter can be reopened. These guys were accused of burning Lusaka City Market, and they were being prosecuted, but I think for political reasons or whatever reasons of the DPP, they discontinued the matter. There's another matter, 32 million. This was awarded to, again through these consent judgments. These are again matters that ended in a nolle prosequi. So 32 million was awarded to Hamusonda Hamaleka, Pretorius Halova, Wallace Chakawa, Laston Mulilanduvi, and Mulea Hachinda. 32 million. There's a case of 14.2 million. This involved 19 people that also sued for malicious prosecutions, Henry Chilufia, and others.
You're not going through all the 19 names, yes?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
There's 2 million. I just want to demonstrate the extent of looting using the law, okay? Abusing provisions of the law, where people know, for example, that under a nolle you cannot compensate because there's a likelihood that these matters can be reopened. 2 million awarded to Charles Simwawa, who shot a rival PF cadre in the leg during the by-elections in Kaoma and was given this 2 million. There's a case of 450,000. You guys discussed it, of the Minister of Transport, Frank Tayali. He says he was pointed a gun at and that he was traumatized. So the state paid 450,000, sorry. 50,000. Yeah, to Honorable Frank Tayali, and 80,000 for his legal fees. There's a case of 1997, where this Indian national who's lived in Zambia since 1978 won a matter against DBZ from 2001. And the matter has been in the courts from 2001, and they won up to Supreme Court. And there's a judgment given to them that DBZ overpaid them. And now there's a process to steal this judgment debt for matters you can trace from 1997, 2001, 2007, a matter that has gone on for 30 years. Clearly, you have an abuse of court processes, of legality, and I agree with Dr. Sishua, who's saying that this government is using lawfare to fight citizens.
All right, in case you're just joining us, our guest this morning is the PF Action Chairperson for Publicity and Information, Emmanuel Mwamba. We'll be opening up the phone lines top of the hour, that is at 10, if you have any question or contribution to make. So what is your take on the UPND has clocked 3 years in office, that happened on the 24th of August. How would you rate their performance?
Oh, it's failure, total failure, utter disaster for our country. It's a lost 3 years. It's very simple. The economy has collapsed. We are suffering the worst cost of living crisis, I think, in recent memory. The exchange rate market has literally collapsed. The kwacha against convertible currencies yo-yos. For example, against the dollar, it will be at 23 kwacha. It jumps to 27, 28 kwacha. Our importers and business people can't plan. And remember, this is an import-oriented country. These guys are giving away assets. Mopani was 100% owned by ZCCMIH by 2020, 2021. 100% owned by ZCCMIH. And this is literally a brand new mine, because 3 shafts were sunk at a cost of $4.5 billion between 2015 and 2020. This mine has been given away to a miner we don't know. And it is purported to have bought it at $1.1 billion, and no money has come to the treasury. KCM, you have a rogue investor. We've clearly stated that Vedanta are not worthy investors that should be given back to KCM. You have the projections that this country, which has copper, cobalt, lithium, should drive the world with the DRC because of the energy transition that is taking place. You need to have assets of your own. This government gives them away, and at a giveaway price, unknown amounts. For KCM, we've been asking hard questions, Hope, that we know that Vedanta left a bill of $1.5 billion. What have you done with that? Who's paying for that $1.5 billion? Is ZESCO going to write off those debts? Is NAPSA going to write off those debts? We keep on asking. So you have a government, disease outbreaks, some diseases.
If we have to talk about how they've performed economically, you know that fingers are still pointed at the Patriotic Front and just how they left things. They say the house was in a mess. We had to clean up. They will point at the debt and so many other issues.
So they say they left the damage. Let's calculate the damage that the PF left. The PF left schools, universities, hospitals, power stations, roads, bridges. That's what the PF left. The PF left airports. The PF left 1.5 million metric tons of maize in national strategic maize reserves. The PF left in the kitty about $3 billion in foreign reserves. Yes, the PF left a foreign debt of $11.9 billion. How much have our colleagues borrowed since 2021? We've put out a figure that they failed to dispute. I put out a figure, if you look at the local and international, domestic and international debt, we've said they've borrowed $6 billion. I saw my dear brother, Noah Nkoma, says, no, we've only borrowed $2.5 billion. Even $2.5 billion is a lot of money in a period of 3 years. They argue that the debt is concessional because they are getting from IMF, World Bank, European Bank, Africa Development Bank, and that they're relying on bilateral aid. Is still a debt. Why have you taken away money that this country used to earn from the mines, and now you are relying on loans? We urge them to ensure that they reinstate the just and fair taxes that the mines must pay to our country. We urge them and appeal to them that the incentives they've given to the mines are not working. In fact, our copper production has dwindled from 850,000 metric tons. It's at its lowest in the last 50 years, at somewhere around 650,000 metric tons, in light of the huge tax incentives that they were given to the mines. It's not working. You have disease outbreaks like I was saying, cholera, anthrax, syphilis. That's why you had na syphilis na yo ikabuela, but now syphilis is here, dysentery. All these outbreaks, and now they are feeding our people poison. You saw where mealie with high presence of aflatoxins was found by nearly all millers. Surprisingly, except ZNS. That's why no one believes the assertions that ZNS milling is clean, because they're the biggest culprits to the issues we are concerned about. They imported maize from South Africa, which was GMO. They are importing currently. We saw the signing agreement with our colleagues from Tanzania. Zambia didn't even issue the statement. We had to get it from Tanzania, who had said that they had signed an agreement with Zambia that they'll be exporting 650,000 metric tons of maize. The trouble with the maize from Tanzania is it has high aflatoxins. They have 2 rain seasons and they have challenges around their sheds and storage facilities. You have to scrutinize the maize that comes from Tanzania.
Yeah, well,
who have been
they have admitted this is the problem right now, and steps have been taken to rectify this.
No,
that doesn't count for anything.
Hope we think they are not telling the truth. I've just demonstrated that the biggest beneficiary of these 3 issues, maize from South Africa. Maize, remember FRA opened the season very early in April. You cannot buy maize from farmers in April. You have to allow the moisture content to come very low before you can buy it. We opened in May. Traditionally, in the last 60 years, 100 years, we've always bought maize and opened the marketing season end of July, August. This is to allow our farmers to ensure that their maize is totally dry. Because we have not invested in reducing moisture content. Others in the private sector, they might have kilns where when they buy the maize, they throw them in the kiln and in ovens, and it dries up and meets the required standards for moisture content. Does FRA have those facilities? And no, they do not. Because you have seen across the country how FRA stores its maize. So FRA maize, South African maize, Tanzanian maize. And we're even told that the maize now will be coming on copper trucks. Copper is processed using very hard substance such as sulfuric acid. But those copper trucks now will be bringing maize. And who are the biggest beneficiaries? ZNS. And they are telling you and me that ZNS maize is clean. Do we believe that report? Do we believe that report? For us, we've stated that we need to deal with the source of the maize, not with the millers. Of course, the millers have a duty of care to ensure that the meal they churn out is proper. But the source of maize is a question. Where is our maize coming from? There's a critical shortage of maize. And if you don't uphold the standards, things like what has happened will happen. And sadly, Hope, no one has been punished. No one has been punished for feeding our people poison. 400 dogs are dead. We don't know the number of poultry, chicken, and others that have died. People, the statistics are not there. And you colleagues, journalists, have not gone to UTH. You have not gone to Matero Hospital or any hospital and asked who has died of liver or kidney complications recently, and what's a history of their disease. The journalists have not done that. To rely on government to give you credible information is to fool ourselves. Someone must pay for this criminal conduct. Look at the other one. 61 trucks marooned. You are buying medicine worth $70 million from Egypt. You pay $25 million. And the medicine is dispatched. It arrives in Beira in November. No one is interested. Because after the corruption, no one is interested in the product. From November, you can see the paper trail.
When you say after the corruption, where was the corruption?
In the procurement. First, it was single sourced. They alleged that this was a government-to-government procurement with Egypt when it was not. We've demonstrated that it's an agency that bought, a military agency, then that buys from other manufacturers, including manufacturers from India, then they dispatch you the medicine. The entire process was corrupt from inception. The trucks are in Beira. You do nothing about it. They stay in Beira for 3 months in rain season. You move them to Lusaka in January, and there's no one to receive. Until we, the opposition, raised and blew the whistle, in July, and that's when you begin to run around. The trucks, 61 trucks have been marooned for 7 months. Who will pay for those demurrage charges? How much does it cost besides the medicine? And is that medicine even fit for consumption if it stayed for 3 months?
No, they told us the tests were conducted and the medicine is safe.
I don't know why we need to believe it, littered with scandal after scandal. We are taking interest with what's happening at ZESCO. There are a lot of deals, these power purchase agreements, and who they are giving to without tender procedures. We are aware of companies that are benefiting from the issues at ZESCO. Our eyes are focused on the looting of treasure of ZESCO that is currently taking place in light of the crisis that our people are facing. We've never had such extended load shedding that our people.
You touched on it because this was going to be my the next issue. We're going to look at the energy crisis in the country right now. What you make of it? I mean, we've been told right now by 1st September the load shedding hours might hit 17 hours a day.
Typical and
the total shutdown, which might happen September 14th. We've been given that date as well.
So let's take Kariba for example. The Zambezi River Authority was very clear that number one, we have a drought because of El Nino that comes once in 10 years. Like the warnings went to the agricultural sector. This government ignored the knowledge and information given to it. Zambezi River Authority for the first time allocated very less water to ZESCO. We kept on saying ZESCO must suspend its exports. ZESCO refused to suspend its exports. To date, ZESCO is still exporting. Zimbabwe wanted to lie that there was not adequate sheds and that's why they were exporting.
Well, another reason that was advanced was that there was money being owed and so they had to pay those farmers that were being owed. I think the last time we had a conversation with the agriculture minister, that's the reason that was advanced.
It's a lie.
There was money that was being owed to farmers and they had to pay
it is a lie and it must be called out. Every time there is a lag between the time FRA collects the maize and the time FRA pays them. And remember, in 2021, we had planned to pay farmers of 500,000 farmers, but we bought from farmers, I think, over 1.1 million farmers instead of the allocated 500,000. So there were some farmers that were owed. And you always budget for it in the new budget and pay the farmers. That has been the tradition in this country the last 6 years. Owing farmers should not be owed for extended period, but for the farming season. They are looters and they just saw the maize and exported it wantonly and threatened national security. They threatened food security. Here we are without any reserves. And now we have to buy maize with aflatoxins. So in the load shedding crisis, remember the PF found a crisis, power crisis. We only had 1,600 megawatts of power that we're producing. The Patriotic Front invested heavily in the power sector. In fact, one of the biggest loans Zambia got is for Kafue Gorge Lower, over $2 billion. We invested in smaller power stations like Lunzua, Chimba, Lusiwashi, Musonda Force. We invested in power stations like Itejiteji Dam. We upgraded Kariba North Bank. We upgraded Kafue Gorge, the original one, and we built a brand new station in Kafue Gorge Lower. We also transitioned to solar, where we set up 2 companies under IDC. So you remember Bangweulu and Ngonye, between them they produce about 100 megawatts. There was a plan, you could see the plan. When our colleagues arrived, they found there was excess of power of about 1,000 megawatts because Zambia consumes about 2,200 megawatts of power at peak. Now our generation and installed capacity was in excess of 3,700 megawatts. So you have that excess. Instead of exporting that power as it arises, because you can't store power, our colleagues went into long-term agreements. You saw the ZESCO managing director sign agreements. You saw him sign long agreements with NamPower from Namibia, from Botswana, from South Africa. They thought this excess power will be eternal. No, it is not eternal. Sometimes it's seasonal. Like, for example, in the period of deficit, when you're waiting for rains between August and January, you may have lower power. But our colleagues committed themselves to exports, long-term exports. And when the crisis hit, they couldn't book out of those contracts. They probably had poor exit clauses. And our people were suffering without power, yet Namibia was celebrating that we can't have load shedding in Namibia because ZESCO is providing us power. You saw the media statement from Botswana Power Corporation celebrating the imports of power from Zambia while we were having load shedding in this country. Yes. So to date, they're still exporting power. We must be very clear. Okay? And our anger was now when they tried to bring a new bill that Zambians should pay for the $14 million.
I was getting to that because we are here now. We need to survive. We've been told ZESCO needs to import, and to import you needs the money. So there was that letter proposal to ERB for the tariffs to be increased, and the latest, what we got after that was ERB rejecting that, and that as well has received quite a number of reactions. I can point at one, Engineer Clive Chira pointing at that and saying, listen, you as ERB should have accepted this from ZESCO. What's your take on this?
No.
Let's talk solutions right now.
Before
How
we
do we recover from this as a
Fire MD and his board at ZESCO, they are the reason we are here. They exported power when they didn't need to. You all just can't look at the balance sheet. You have to look at the lives of our people. How many businesses have been destroyed? The trouble with this government is that every time there's a crisis, no one takes action. No one is punished for the errors, pays for that criminal negligence. That's our trouble. Before we go to solutions, you can't cover the wounds, the septic wounds as they are rotting, and hope that there'll be healing. No, let's go to the root cause of this crisis. For the agricultural sector.
Isn't it the interference from you politicians?
Yeah. For agriculture sector, Minister of Agriculture. Honorable Minister, there are these alerts. You keep on exporting maize, but there are these alerts that we are going to have one of the worst droughts probably in the last 30, 40 years. Why are you exporting? And you've heard that viral video by the Minister of Agriculture, Ruben Mtolo, where he said, never will continue to export, will never, ever stop exporting maize. Who pays for that decision? Before you ask us to support your drought mechanism solutions, have you dealt with the people that ignored professional advice? Have you dealt with those that alerted us that we'll have this drought? You kept on exporting maize that you are now re-importing. Who pays for that decision? We just can't support you. On ZESCO, clearly their decisions were very criminal. Someone must pay for putting Zambians to the crisis that they are putting us to. And we've been asking, you decommissioned industrial gensets from Zambezi, from Kabompo, Mwinilunga, from Luangwa, from Lundazi. Where are these industrial gensets? Why can't they help to alleviate the crisis we have? Your measures that the president has outlined, we have challenged those measures. In this crisis, that is not the time to sneak in corrupt power purchase agreements. In this crisis, that's not the time to sneak in policies that are inimical to the interests of our country. The president, you heard, he announced through his cabinet that they will unbundle ZESCO, that they will take away transmission distribution network of ZESCO to a new entity. Those decisions require that Parliament weighs in and approves according to Article 210, Sub-Article 2 of the Republican Constitution. It requires, every time you do a major issue with a state asset, you need to seek Parliament approval. But like they did on KCM, like they did on Mopani, and now like they want to do on ZESCO, they've ignored the law. So they want to unbundle ZESCO. Do they want to sell it? We don't know. Why are they unbundling it? What are the issues with ZESCO? The issues with ZESCO are usually corruption, the procurement corruption that is there, the overstaffing, and the total inefficiency, and, for example, incompetent decisions made by management. Those are the structural issues you need to deal with before you go to unbundle ZESCO. But they're using the crisis. So listing, like they used on KCM and Mopani. Clearly, there was desperation by our people on the Copper Belt. There were no jobs. The mines were not allowed to operate. And for a reason.
That was the real picture. That was the clear picture.
It wasn't. It's a criminal decision. Let me explain why it's a criminal decision. Mopani is a brand new mine. It has received investment of $4.5 billion. ZCCMIH, which now own the mines as of 2021, put out a bill, give us $300 million, and we'll be at full production within a period of 6 weeks. Decisions that will harm our country for a long time. You remember how people bemoaned the issue of privatization program in the 1990s. Yes, parastatals were making losses. Yes, the economy was its knees, and they sneaked in the privatization program. And that program sold over 270 companies, and our country was deindustrialized. Our manufacturing and industrial sectors died. They used the crisis we had, that we had a large state participation in the economy, although it was inefficient, to sneak in a program to loot our assets. Why should we allow that to occur now? So they've used the desperation on the copper belt to make the decisions they've made on Mopani and KCM. The issues occurring at ZESCO, we are putting an eye to what is happening at ZESCO. There are a lot of wrong things, and Mwebe Kalachalo, as soon as we know the particular details, and for those that are around ZESCO, keep on giving us information. These agreements they are signing, where they are buying power from ZESCO for 12 cents and giving it to the mines, a company that has no history of energy in this country, has no transmission lines, has no nothing, gets a brand new contract that is earning them something like millions of dollars a month. We need to pay attention to what's happening to our country. That hope, as you said, in the 3 years, what have they done? They'll tell you CDF. They'll tell you free education. Come on. There is at stake.
Textiles right now. We saw, that ceremony yesterday. The receiving of the equipment. Isn't that a win?
President Michael Sata commissioned Mulungushi Textiles. President Lungu commissioned Mulungushi Textiles. They have commissioned Mulungushi Textiles. Let's see how it pans out. For me, I like asking very legitimate question. If President Michael Sata commissioned Mulungushi Textiles, why didn't it work? If President Lungu pumped in money in 2019, a lot of money in Mulungushi Textiles, why didn't it work? They bought new machines. Will it work? If you are getting a T-shirt, from China at 7 kwacha, and Mulungushi Textiles is going to produce that same T-shirt for 130 kwacha, how viable will Mulungushi Textiles? If you are getting a chitenge from the DRC for 30 kwacha, how much will be a chitenge from Mulungushi Textiles? So these decisions have to be holistic with the environment of our country, with our liberal policies. We probably need, do we need a textile industry in our country? You have to be like Singapore. They have no minerals, they have no nothing. They identified a niche and said, okay, we are strong on the financial sector and we'll educate our people to run the financial sector. And the country with no mineral resources, sitting on a sort of sand, a patch of sand, becomes a first nation and has its GDP almost the entire Africa. That's what we have to ask ourselves. To say because we want to please people for these decisions, even if we put Kafue Textiles, will it work in the presence of Salaula? High-grade clothes sold for 50 kwacha. How much will be a product by Mulungushi? So before we demonstrate excitement, we may have to ask very hard questions. What are we good at? We want to qualify, not quarter gold, not quarter sujilite, not quarter copper, not quarter lithium. What can we do? If you have decisions, for example, that we have a strong state participation, you set up a value chain in Zambia for the minerals we have, for me that would be more beneficial. Thank God people will celebrate on Mulungushi Textiles, but I'll still ask, if you have a Salaula market, and if you have cheap imports from China, Mulungushi Textiles will not compete.
Okay. Mr. Mwamba, we'll be getting to the phone lines shortly, but before we do that, let's touch on UCA as well. What does the future hold for UCA ahead of the 2026 polls? And there's concern from stakeholders that ECL is preparing Citizens First President Harry Kalava as a possible candidate for UCA. When is UCA going to choose their candidate?
We must first start that these are political parties. The PF and 13 other political parties. For me, an alliance is a natural phenomenon towards elections. We had UDA, United Democratic Alliance, in 2006. We had PFULP Alliance in 2011 with Mr. Michael Sata and Mr. Sakwiba Scotta. In the last elections, we had the UPND Alliance with MDC and 9 other political parties. Political alliances are mere political alliances. This is just to attempt to amalgamate votes. The United Kwacha Alliance is being formed in that light, that there is need for the opposition to come together. And we've always called that all members of the opposition must come together, whether they are KBF's party, whether it's Fred Member's party, and the parties that are in UKA. I think that should be the spirit, that the opposition should work together. That's what our people want. On the allegations that President Edgar Lungu is supporting Harry Kalaba, of course that's just mischief. We love the resilience of Mr. Harry Kalaba. We love the resilience and support from Shalakateka, from Mr. Sakwiba Scotta and others, from Mr. Sean Tembo, and they must be respected in their own right. These are coming to the table as equals, whether with Edgar Lungu. They're just trying to form an alliance that by 2026, Zambians have decided that UPND is going because they're incompetent, they're corrupt, they failed the economy, they failed to feed our people, they failed to the agricultural sector, they've sought out the mining sector. This government has to go. And a solution has to come from the opposition. Will it be
that's why the question, when are you choosing that candidate?
It's a process. It shouldn't even be rushed.
But shouldn't the picture be clear?
No, it shouldn't.
I mean, how much time do we have before the elections?
24 hours is a lot of time in politics. In Senegal, you had the brutal government that jailed the opposition leaders. And when the tension were building 10 days before election, the opposition were released and one of the candidates won elections. 24 hours in politics is a long time. When did the UPND alliance come together? They had been working on an alliance from 2015 that never held. Finally, they found the magic by 2020, and they had the UPND alliance. So for me, there is no time to rush. We saw how the alliances came together in Kenya. You can study that. There should be no rush. But what is very clear is that the people of Zambia have decided that the UPND is harmful to our country, that the UPND is destroying our country, that the UPND is selling out on our country, and they will find a solution, whether it will be 10 days before elections, whether it will be 2 years before elections. Our people will find a candidate that will emerge.
All right, let's now get to the phone lines. If you have any question or contribution to make, the number to dial is 0974 870 877.
Hot FM 87.7. It's time for you to call now and get involved. Call now and get involved.
All right, so give us a call on 0974 870 877 if you have any question or contribution to make this morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. All right, you're so faint, can barely get you. If you can just speak up. Moffat, all right, go on.
Moffat, good morning.
All right, thank you for that. We'll just have to take in another one, then I'll let you respond. 0974 870 877 is the number we're taking your calls on. If you have any question or contribution to make, this is Tuesday's edition of the Hot Sit. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. You're through to the Hot Sit.
Good morning, my dear brother.
Who do we have on the line? Mr. Noah Nkwama. All right, go on, Mr. Nkwama.
President Edgar promised the residents of Cal, not once, twice, that they were going to rebel. Mongo Shiteka. So at the point that he was promising, Nyakalaula was the Chinese infrastructure. Why have the dynamics changed now that the
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Nkwama. Mr. Mwamba, you can take this.
Yeah, let's start with Moffat. Moffat says how much does ZESCO produce power and how much is it selling at. Moffat, we've been very clear that ZESCO needs to review the two policies, the bulk supply agreement with CEC. CEC gets that power very cheaply and sells it very expensive to the mines and benefits the current owners. You know, remember CEC used to be owned by ZCCMIH, and these businessmen hived it off from ZCCM and made it was a power department under ZCCMIH. They made it a separate company. And then they make these millions of dollars from ZESCO Power. They've attempted to diversify, have a solar farm here and have some generation capacity that they wanted to do in Northwestern Province. But essentially, CEC survives on power from ZESCO and sells it to the mines. And we say, why should the people of Zambia and ZESCO subsidize a company like CEC? So you need a fair power purchase. The bulk supply agreement between ZESCO and CEC must be fair to ZESCO. ZESCO cannot produce power at such a rate and then sells it cheaply to CEC, who then makes millions of dollars by selling the same power to the mines. On the contrast, let me take the issue of Mwamba Collieries. Mwamba Collieries produces power, Hope, at a very expensive rate. It's a private company, it's owned by an entity from Singapore, Indian group from Singapore, and they own Mwamba Collieries. Of course, we have a presence of 35% as SCMIH, but essentially it's a private entity. It produces that power very expensively, and ZESCO has to sell you that power they buy to you at very low rate. Again, you have the people of Zambia subsidizing a multinational. Those are the decisions. Why should the upgrade of Mwamba Collieries use NAPSA funds? Why should they? Why can't they go to the market? and they were owed $500 million by ZESCO. This government ensured that ZESCO dismantled that debt. Why couldn't they use, Mwamba Collieries, why couldn't it use that $500 million to invest in the project that it is putting out to? You see that you have an economy taken hostage by multinationals, by private interest, and looting the treasury. Our brother says, Emmanuel Glencoe, and I think I can take it together with my dear brother Noah Nkoma. Yes, I've just stated that Mopani had an investment of $4.5 billion in a period of 5 years. It sank 3 brand new shafts. You are aware of them in Flira and in Kitwe. $4.5 billion of investment. Why did Glencoe, after making such a huge investment, book out of such a mine that have sunk in so much? It's very simple. The directors were being investigated by Serious Frauds Office of UK and by FBI. These matters were public. They were going to go to jail. Their assets were going to be seized. They quickly jumped on sale of the assets. They sold their assets in Namibia, in Australia, in South Africa, and in Zambia. It was not because Mopani was not profitable. It's because the directors were facing serious criminal charges from UK and from the US. Of course, you and I may discuss that when Glencoe decided to book out of the mines, was the justification that they gave the mine to us at $1, but said you have a debt of $1.5 billion because we've invested 4.5. And they said, in order to repay this $1.5 billion, you are going to give up marketing rights. We will do the marketing rights. That, Moffat, will require a lot of time for us to discuss the merit of that agreement, and I would rather that I have the agreement here than we put it out. But essentially, my point is, as at 2020, 2021, both KCM and ZCCM and Mopani were owned by Zambia with the good projections of copper in the next 50 years. There was no way Zambia would pass that opportunity and give away these, family silver. Honorable Noah Nkoma, my dear brother, and thank you for your call, Honorable Noah Nkoma. You say Mulungushi Textiles, Michael Sata and Edgar Lungu wanted to reopen them. What has changed now? There's nothing that has changed nowhere. It's Emmanuel Mwamba speaking, and for me, I would like to interrogate. If Edgar Lungu pumped in money in Mulungushi Textiles and it didn't work, will the pumping of money by President Hakainde Hichilema work? That's my question. Just answer that question. You have a Salaula thriving market in this country that sell high-quality second-hand clothes, and they are sold cheaply for 50 kwacha, 20 kwacha, 100 kwacha. Beautiful dresses, dinner dresses. Well, you have a chitenge that comes from Europe and from the DRC that sells for very little money. You have t-shirts that are coming from China and they sell as low as 7 kwacha. My question is, will Mulungushi Textiles survive in that environment? If you make a single decision just to bring machinery and put workers back, will this product be competitive in that environment? Whether it is in 2013 when Michael Sata decided to reopen Mulungushi, whether it's 2019 when Edgar Lungu pumped in money in Mulungushi Textiles, whether it's President Hakainde Hichilema who has upgraded the machinery, ZESCO is being run incompetently and inefficiently. I've demonstrated of the incompetent and criminal decisions both by the board and the management. And I've stated, for example, that when they were allocated water for Kariba for the period of 2024, that they should have suspended exports. There was no need to run those machines to meet power export. They should have, in fact, started the load shedding of 3 hours. We could have had 3 hours load shedding up to December if they planned well. And before we support the emergency decisions, we need to interrogate who sowed the maize before we support the emergency decisions that you are making. We need to interrogate these issues and not just to blindly support. No. There is desperation on the copper belt to sell the mines. No, is that a decision you should? Why don't you subject it to Parliament? Like a 210 article of the Constitution says.
Right, we need to accommodate more calls. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Hello, good morning. What do we have on the line?
Let's look into Mishek. Good morning.
Mishek, good morning.
Thank you. Mwamba quality were up to whatever from Banga, especially Banga to approach. Why did they go to the market? The question I have for you is this. In the market, that market here is not great drama. But the profit market is very hard. You get the point? So, some of them to NAPSA. If you NAPSA, we have to pump Mudia, they want to have a Shama NAPSA will benefit, we make a profit out of that thing. So, this thinking of, like, NAPSA can't business, whatever, this is why I've come to conclusion. In my opinion, number one, what the one is because you can never then one year in Coco. Now don't go for chicken. Because you guys have tested you, who have tried you, who have seen your thinking so criminal and so shameful for them to think like you.
All right, I think we've gotten your point. We've got your question there. Let's allow him to respond. All right, yeah, I'll still allow you. Please respect my guests. So just make your point, ask your question, and we will proceed from there. I will not allow you to disrespect my guests. 0974-870-877 is the number to dial if you have any question or contribution to make. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Jackson.
Jackson, all right, go on, Jackson. Jackson. All right, we'll have to take it another one. Hello, good morning. You're through to the hot seat. Hello. Morning, Mr. Mo. All right, go on.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Yes. No, Emmanuel Mwamba, something very well. Because the people, and we talk to them in the way, that are being made here and there. At the end of the day, you know, I'm just going back now. On the issue of the economy, part of Ghana government, make a statement, put not at the end of the government, and that's going to say, the economy, the bring data, that issue. The talking right now, but that's something they call for moving forward. Is the issue of the not cheap. Now, can you imagine the whole Bank of Ghana government trying to find an excuse to carry with the correct tax holidays and the correct money from the tax? Then start to really not change the thing. These are the issues that are here. These are the issues that are being dealt with government and the country where they're failing to perform. Sure, that's resigning. You know when you fail, you're better off doing a better thing. So that's resigning. Who are competent. But therefore, the Bank of Ghana, all these institutions are failing. They're failing us because they're failing to advise the president what should be done. The ERP, for example, the issue of fuel, the type of goods, one, you're being accused of stealing, I don't know, 50% or whatever, for selling the fuel. This is procurement. Now, what has changed now? Why? Things are getting worse and worse. And if ERP system wants to come back to government, or any other, then book our agenda, or send it to government, why? They have either to yes, why
Right.
here you have better registration and discount rate of goods. People cannot say that the world is great here and there. Why does it get the cheaper oil for one water, for example?
All right, Mr. Mwamba, we've given you enough time. Thank you so much. Let's allow him to respond. All right, we'll take in one more and then I'll let you respond, Mr. Mwamba. 0974-870-877 if you have any contribution to make. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mwamba.
Good morning.
This is Emmanuel calling you from India.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have spoken well, Mr. Mwamba. But the only question I have is that why, my dear, the man had a politician? Too much of advice you are still government. What is Maganzwa? What must that do? So that these ideas are coming from Upa or PM. You got the sitting president, Mr. President, let's do this so. Why is that so? Why can't you do that? You people go, you politicians, you people with knowledge and wisdom. What's going on about the doing no money? But why can't you go to the house? You call Mr. President, you call that cabinet, you sit down, you bring these ideas on the table. Through the country, as one time, one nation, I rest my case, from India.
All right.
Let me start with our colleague from Linda Compound. Is right. The environment in our country, the opposition can't meet the ruling party officials. They might have tea in private, but in public, they posture like they are political enemies. And that culture must, hope, come to an end. We have called for an indaba. We've said, Mr. President, this country has a crisis. Yes, you found debt. But your economic solutions of relying on the IMF and foreign investment is not working. You've made our country poorer. Poverty is now standing at 60%. The cost of living crisis is the worst we've seen in living memory. We have load shedding, we have disease outbreaks, you have corruption that has invaded even your state chambers. They are very corrupt. Mr. President, let's talk over these matters.
Maybe it's the approach that matters, don't you think?
We did a letter. You remember that the opposition sat together at a press conference and called for an indaba. What was the response from State House? Ridicule and irrelevant. And they affirmed that UPND and President Hakainde Hichilema was on course to rescue this country. Even when things are bad, hunger has invaded our homes, corruption has invaded government offices, when diseases have invaded our people, hospitals, nothing is working, no government institution is properly working. And all we hear is talk, talk, talk. We said, in fact, we referred to 2 emergency reports. There was an IMF report that stated the 2022 report published in 2023 that stated that the conditions in Zambia were so bad that the country was facing literally civil unrest. There's another international report by the International Intelligence Economic Unit, IAU, a European think tank that regularly comments about Africa. It said the conditions in Zambia literally may result into popular uprising. That's the words, those are the words they used. This is not Emmanuel Mwamba speaking, or Fred Membe or Edgar Lungu. They are saying the hunger our people are facing, the lack of jobs, the diseases they are suffering, and where government is not available. The conditions are so bad, and the solutions you're providing are so bad that you can have civil unrest, that you can have... When we say that, Mr. Jack Mimbu says we are inciting. We are not. It's an IMF report. It's an international report. The church have, in their last pastoral letter, although they couldn't release this last one, also spoke to these issues and urged the president that he should call for an indaba. Instead, we are ridiculed and insulted, and our views are deemed as anti-government. And when we have this crisis, like we have, they've sold the maize, we told them don't sell the maize. They proceeded to sell. Now they say you support the emergency matters. They're subjecting load shedding to our people of over 17 hours. And hope, when they said we're having 6-hour load shedding, you know we're having 12, 14 hours. When they said we're having load shedding for 12 hours, we're actually having load shedding for 3 days. So when they move to 17 hours, it may be a week of load shedding. The calendar doesn't match what ZESCO says. No one follows that calendar. When we advise, we are ridiculed. We are called that we are bitter, we are frustrated. No, UCA or PF will never rule. That's not a debate. The debate is about our people and their suffering. How do we attend to them? We may be from the opposition, but we may have solutions with the experience we've had, but we are ridiculed. So, Abakulinda Waboma, I agree with you. Bank of Zambia, Jackson says, why are you saying that you get an UCA leader within 10 days before elections? No, Jackson, you misunderstood me. I was saying you have to give the alliance time. The leaders have to know one another. They have to formulate a process that will elect a leader among themselves. Remember, these are individual political parties with their own presidential candidates, with their own party constitution. They have internal and external processes to consider before they agree. So it's an alliance of independent political parties. It's not all the political parties are dissolving into one political party. So
I'm trying to think of of who's new there, because you all seem to know each other very well. So why should it take so long?
But why
the parties that are involved?
It could be strategic. For example, I never faced anything. I was a good citizen. As soon as I stepped out that I wanted to be a presidential candidate in Patriotic Front, I was arrested, my tooth was knocked out, I was tortured, my assets were frozen. If I had not taken that step, probably I would not have faced all that. So some decisions have to be strategic. Edgar Lungu was okay until he said, I'm returning to politics. Then they heightened the campaign against him.
So is that the reason for the delay?
It could be strategic. They are thinking of all these issues. They have internal processes to consult. These are independent political parties with their own leadership and their own presidential candidates. And if you are saying you have to forego the chance to stand in 2026, that's a major decision for a political party. And you have to allow them decisions.
All right. Well, Mr. Mwamba, we need to get back to the phone line, 0974 870-877 if you have any question or contribution to make. It's Tuesday's edition of the Hot Seat. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir. It's still morning.
It's still morning here.
Yes. My name is Emmanuel Mwamba from Katua area.
All right, talk to us.
Jamene suluta kila president katika mchana wa Payoka kwenye Zambia wao government ilifanya president manje hapa kila Oktoba osa sikuna kwa mapagani president ndio president katika Payoka ndio hapa kwenye or 1 month katika kufanya president kwa president Sangai president katika mchana ungaleshua organizaji wa president ni huyu Ayuka yake tuengani president amekuja part of president ni sasa Sangai president katika mfano.
Okay.
Also that kuna wanazaga sasa kesi watu wanazaga wao wanazaga president many better.
All right, that's the point. Right, 0974 870 877 0974 870 877. Hello, good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
You are talking to Emmanuel from Taka.
All right, go on.
I've got two questions for Mr. Mwamba. First one, Mr. Mwamba, Zambia in its side force, what would you have done if you were in the office? Then secondly, do you think the president has been paying a debt here to an end like here in the city from the back of the country?
All right, thank you for that. Right, it's taken more 0974 870 877. We'll be wrapping up shortly. If you have any question or contribution to make, you can call on that line. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, thanks. Your name?
Good morning, sir. Your name, sir? Thank you, sir.
Right, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Hopper. I think clearly the issue of UCA is of concern to Zambians, and we take your concerns, and I hope that the UCA leadership is listening, where people are demanding that they need to pick a leader amongst themselves. It's an issue we throw to the leadership of UCA, and that they should handle it. Wamashina Emmanuel from Lusaka saying Zambia in its current form, what could we have done better? First, you shouldn't give prominence to multinationals, to rape your country and to rape your treasury and your natural resources. These colleagues of ours have given preeminence to what they call foreign investment, but all the investments are not okay. Someone asked that, why are you condemning NAPSA's investment? NAPSA has its own board, its own MD, and an investment committee. But those decisions have come from State House. Who announced that NAPSA would invest in Lusaka Ndola Dual Carriageway? Was that investment on NAPSA's annual plans? Was that investment provided for by NAPSA, forking out $300 million to a private entity that is purporting, that is doing a public-private partnership with government? Then they go to raid the public pensions. Should be cause of worry. And they're going to mint millions, even if they pay back NAPSA. If NAPSA has capacity to give them for the Ndola Lusaka Dual Carriageway, then they should have just hired them as contractors and do the road. NAPSA built a brand new hotel, Radisson Hotel in Livingston, at a cost of $100 million. They hired the contractor, a Chinese, I think a South African contractor. The contractor finished, they paid, and they hired an operator, Radisson Blue, to operate the hotel, and the hotel belongs to NAPSA. NAPSA could have done the same if their investment was in the Lusaka Ndola Dual Carriageway. But it's a corrupt decisions we condemn, where you force public funds. And NAPSA is not the only pension fund. You have private pensioners here. If the project is that lucrative, allow the private pensions also to participate. But you have Mwamba collieries. At short notice, you want to force NAPSA to pump in $300 million. You are looting the public pension funds. If the decision by Mwamba collieries is commercial, is profitable, why are you forcing NAPSA to invest in Mwamba collieries? If it's a business decision for NAPSA that will benefit NAPSA, allow NAPSA to make its decisions. But what we have hope currently is that there's a looting of the treasury, from whether it's compensation fund at Ministry of Justice, where people want to loot judgment debts, whether it is the corruption that is happening at ZESCO, whether it's the corruption that is happening at ministries, whether it's these decisions where you are forcing NAPSA to make irrational investment without due diligence, and you are using political weight and state power to compel NAPSA to make those investments, that we condemn. If those decisions are lucrative, tender them. Let also the private pension houses also participate if it's the profitability you are claiming that is a profitable decision for NAPSA. Michael Chisha says load shedding power went yesterday, over 24 hours later, that's when it's coming, and they're saying 17 hours is only starting in September. Like I said, when they said load shedding was for 6 hours, it was actually going for 18 hours. When they said load shedding was at 12 hours, it was actually going on for days. Now they've said 17 hours, probably to be weeks before we have power. My appeal to the people of Zambia is that there is NRC issuance and voter registration currently going on. And it's not in government's interest to tell you about this. They are conducting secret registrations and secret issuance of NRC. We want to by radio stations or stations. It will be changed by your action. Go and register as a voter. If you don't have an NRC, go and get an NRC. 16. By the time we are going to elections, by 18, kampokele NRC, and there is continuous voter registration taking place on no centers. ECZ, whatever money it has, will not publicize these projects. It's not in your interest as you Zambians to register as voters, but it's in the interest of the UPND to get as many numbers as possible. Until you are late, until you decide, don't do it at the last minute. Go and register as a voter now. Ukwetemia 16, please get them an NRC so that by 2026 they can register as voters. And for you people that just complain and complain and complain, you can't change government by complaining. You have to take a physical action. Go and register as a voter. There's continuous voter registration that is taking place. And the numbers are poor, but they are higher in places of their interest. Take note, participate. This is a public process.
Right, well, Mr. Mwamba, thank you so much for coming through this morning. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you, Hope, and thank you to you for good moderation, and to our listeners and callers, including my dear brother Noah Nkoma, who's a diligent participant in public debate. Thank you very much, Noah Nkoma, for that call. It enriches our debate. To the management of Hot FM, thank you for the great opportunity. And to you, the viewers, go and register as a voter. We want to Wakwalesa.
All right, have a good day. Well, that's it for Tuesday's. For publicity and information,